Welcome, my friends, to another YouTube version of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you do, please subscribe to the channel. So here we go.
Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to episode 205 of the BJJ Brick Podcast. I'm Gary. I'm here with my partner in crime, Byron. Byron, how are you doing on this fine day?
Gary, I'm doing great. Really happy to bring this episode with Chelsah Lyons is our interview. We have a great article of the week. We actually have the author coming on the show. His name is Joe Thomas. He's going to be talking with us about that. Really a great show, and really excited to bring that to everybody. Today I'm doing good. We also got to roll this morning, Gary.
Yes, we definitely got to roll this morning, and that's always makes a good day.
So, yeah. Gary.
Yes, Byron. I know what you're trying to say, Byron. You were trying to say we should never miss an episode. We need to get on the email list. Like, you will never miss an episode like this episode 205. We have Chelsah Lyons, brown belt, an instructor at Marcelo Garcia in Dallas, Texas. She's going to be dropping some knowledge and definitely, helping our games and increase our learning curve, as Byron likes to say. You will never miss an episode. Each and every week, by getting on our email list, we will send you the show notes into your inbox. So definitely make sure you put your email address in there.
Yep, quick and easy. If you're in your first year of BJJ, not quick, not easy. It's often described as the most difficult year of your martial arts training. And so I would like to help you out with that process. I made an audiobook because I'm kind of an audio guy. The audiobook is $11.99. The money goes and helps the show, and the audiobook goes and helps you during your first year of training. Help you really pick out the right gym, help you through that first month, which is a little bit more detailed as far as not just your first year, but really walking into that gym, what to expect, all the butterflies that you might have. A big part of the book is focusing on the right techniques, the right positions that will give you the best bang for your buck and help you in the long term. I think that's a lot of the mistakes people make early on is they just don't have any focus on anything. It causes a lot of frustration, causes wasted time on the mat, learning things that they really will never be able to apply even in their first year to their training partners. And I think this book has helped quite a few people, and it could help you. If you're in your first year, check it out. It's $11.99, your first year of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu audiobook by yours truly. Look for it in the show notes. It's about 2.5 hours long, my friends.
Definitely check it out. It has got some very good reviews, and it'll definitely help you in your first year. So enjoy. Something
that I'm going to enjoy is talking about this quote with my good buddy, Gary, my partner in crime, as Gary often calls me.
Now you're calling me a criminal?
Yeah. Well, you call me the partner in crime all the time, Gary. I'm just throwing that back at you.
Yep, man, it's just like an obstacle when you call me a partner in crime.
Yes, it is. And one thing that I've heard people say, somebody like E. Joseph Crossman, is obstacles are things a person sees when he takes his eye off his goal. And Gary, I'm not trying to throw obstacles at you, but you got to keep your eye on the goal and you won't really notice the obstacles. And looking at Jiu-Jitsu, Gary, how do you see that obstacles can be something that you would really perceive more of when you take your eyes off that prize?
I think one of the biggest obstacles we're going to see is injuries. Our goal when we step on the mat, is to get better, to get to the next belt level, to win the next tournament, or to place better at the next tournament, or even just to place. But I think it all relates to getting better. As we get better, we are going to get to the next belt. We are going to, place at a tournament, have more fun. But injuries, we are going to run into injuries from time to time. It is an obstacle. We have our goals set, but injuries can derail us. It's a fact of life. We are going to have an injury from time to time that's going to keep us off the mat. But does that mean, we're derailed? I still want to get better. how am I going to get better when I'm injured? I'm still going to come to practice. I'm going to watch. I'm going to take notes. If I'm at that level, I'm going to coach people, which is going to help me better. I'm going to try to do any type of activity I can. Let's say I've hurt my knee, but I may be able to pummel, after my knee, heals enough where I can stand on it. So there's always ways to think outside the box and keep getting better, keep my mind in my game. I may, if my knees hurt, may spend some time in the gym working on my upper body strength. So there's a lot of stuff you can still do, when that big obstacle, the big injury obstacle comes up. That doesn't mean I'm just going to quit and fall back and roll over and play dead.
Yeah, that's not usually a good jiu-jitsu strategy, the play dead method.
I use it all the time.
The idea that you really see the obstacle when you take your eyes off the goal. So depending on what your goal is, if you do get injured, if that's like the example obstacle that we're using here, just keep active in some way and keep the idea of getting better, getting some other category of fitness, maybe cardio, maybe Gary's upper body. He's trying to get that developed. He's got to look good for the calendar that's coming out. He's all 12 months of the BJJ Brick calendar this year, guys, so no worries about getting me in there. But, keep your eye...
The bad thing about that, though, is Byron made me turn around for every one of them, so we shot from behind.
Well, if you would have worked on your abs a little bit more, we would have done some... The main part was I didn't let him even look at the camera. It's just the back of his head is... His hair's pretty good back there. I don't know. Gary, this is going really bad, really fast. But, back to the quote at hand. In anything, when you're standing there just staring at the obstacles, and you may not have like a formal, I'm injured, my arm is hurt, this, right now is my obstacle. It might just be getting to the gym. It might be getting a cleaner diet. It might
trying
be
to find time.
Yeah, your training partners are way better than you, or any of this stuff. It's just keeping your eye on the bigger goal. It might be and that could change as well. I mean, that could be getting in shape. It could be getting a better guard. It could be that tournament, or making coach happy with your performance, and having better awareness of a self defense. Any of these things could be your goal. But if you just stare at all the obstacles that are in front of you, at what it takes for you to actually get better at jiu-jitsu, you could list a giant page of all things that stand in your way of getting better at jiu-jitsu. Don't even worry about those things. Just do the one that's in front of you, and if you can make it an enjoyable process, you'll stick with it. And, the obstacle of getting to jiu-jitsu. I mean, maybe you live an hour or two away from where you're training. Throw in a good podcast or something to sing some songs on the way on the radio or whatever. Pick up somebody in carpool, and that we could talk about jiu-jitsu the whole time. There's a lot of things you could do that really the obstacles could become part of the solution.
Byron, I like what you said there. First of all, to make it enjoyable. This is a hobby. It's a lifestyle. We're going to keep doing it because it's enjoyable. But, you were talking about, put in the podcast. And Byron and I rolled this morning, and we rolled with a guy we haven't rolled with in a long time. His name's Justin. And I'm not sure if you're listening, Justin, or not, but Justin mentioned to me, Byron, and I know you weren't around, and I don't know if he said it to you, but he said, we haven't seen Justin in a while. He just, he's got some stuff going on with his life and a brand new baby, and, got a lot of, doesn't have a lot of time, which happens when you have a brand new baby. But he was telling me that he was listening to our podcast and heard Byron talking about, how much time the average person spends watching TV. And, he started thinking about it. He's like, Byron really, uplifted him and got him in a good mood. And he's like, I started thinking about it. I do change my schedule around to make sure I can catch up on Netflix. And he's like, after hearing Byron say that, he ended up coming into the gym today because he's like, hey, I'm going to, throw that Netflix or TV behind jiu-jitsu. And, if I can make 1 or 2 days a week of jiu-jitsu, I'm doing a lot better, and I'm going to be a lot happier than I was. And so I started talking to him and said that, he's like, I just feel so much better after rolling. And, I was telling him the same thing. I feel the same way. I don't know if it's endorphins or what that makes us feel better, but The other thing I just like is the camaraderie. I would miss the camaraderie. Even if I couldn't roll anymore, I think I would show up, all the time into the gym just to hang out with people and talk and, make jokes on each other and just have a good time. But I thought that was cool, what he said. And it reminded me of what you were saying, Byron, just listen to a podcast on your way over. You listen to a podcast or even your favorite music, and it just puts you in a good mood, and it gets you ready to go train.
Yeah, don't do what Gary does and like write down all the techniques that you've learned on your phone as you're driving. Bad idea. No, but
I get in accidents a lot.
You mentioned Justin. Man, I don't know how long it's been since he's been on the mat, but I was like, all right, I recognize him, and he hadn't lost a step. He's still moving really well, and you might be sitting there on the couch, watching TV or listening to a podcast at this moment, but TV might be one of the main things that you enjoy in life, and that's perfectly fine. But you get a lot out of jiu-jitsu. It is fun. TV is fun too. It's entertaining, but jiu-jitsu is doing a lot for you other than just being fun. Like you're talking about, you get that exercise, you feel good afterwards. You really feel like you're improving things on the mat, and it's got a lot going for you. And if it just takes you getting up and canceling a few of your TV hours, that's worth it. It's the idea that you're missing out on the TV. It'll be there when you get back. Don't make the TV an obstacle to your training. Well,
I talked to a guy that went to practice and he came home and somebody broke into his house and stole his TV.
Okay, I feel bad for that guy because I just told everybody to be there when you get back. Your TV.
So don't take Byron 100%, to the T on that.
Oh man, lock your doors. And,
good point.
Yeah, and be careful. But the quote, really. Focus on the goal. Keep your, like the other quote, keep your eye on the prize. Obstacles are going to present themselves. Take them out, one thing at a time and move on. And a lot of times obstacles are, in the long run, you're able to make those into advantages. And if you could do that, you'll be way ahead.
Great article or great quote there by E. Joseph Kosman.
There we go. Gary, let's get on with the interview with Chelsah Lyons. He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
I actually know how to defeat the Darth Vader choke. The Force is so strong in me. I don't try to defeat it. I just defeat it. I was doing solo drills and accidentally passed my own guard. I lay there motionless for 2 days until my neighbor found me and helped me escape side control. I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Chelsah Lyons to the BJJ Break podcast. Chelsah, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on here. We're excited to have you. You've got a lot of interesting stories, and you've got a lot of experience as a grappler. If somebody who doesn't know who you are yet, could you maybe introduce yourself a little bit and tell us who you are?
Okay. Chelsah Lyons, as you just stated. I train under Rob Abel out of Marcelo Garcia of Dallas in Dallas, Texas. And Rob is a 3-stripe black belt under Marcelo Garcia. I've been training for going towards 8 years now. I am a brown belt as of January, and I am a 4-time Fight to Win Pro winner. I don't know what you call that. Champion. There you go. And I'm an instructor at Marcelo Garcia Dallas as well. I teach the kids classes, I teach women's classes, and I teach adult classes as well.
A lot going on there. What brought you to jiu-jitsu?
Well, let's see. So initially I wanted to be a cage fighter, and I joined MMA. I had actually been thinking about getting back into martial arts. I did Shotokan when I was younger, because this is America and we didn't know Jiu-Jitsu existed. So because of all 80s, 90s karate movies, we thought karate was the only way. So I did Shotokan when I was younger and kind of stepped away from martial arts and enjoyed my crazy teens and early 20s. And then I thought about getting back into martial arts. I saw Gina Carano fight Caitlin Young in a cage, her first fight. And I said, that's what I want to do. And I actually thought that I would be more drawn to Muay Thai. And the further that I went into MMA, the more that Jiu-Jitsu just kind of grabbed me. As well, kind of interesting. So about a week before I walked into an MMA gym to be like, hey, I want to train, I was held at gunpoint. And I decided right then that I was going to quit talking about the things I want to do in life and go ahead and do them in case somebody decided that they didn't want me around anymore. So, yeah. And then as well, I thought, you know, if somebody wanted more than maybe just my belongings, that they were definitely going to have a fight on their hand. And at this point, I feel like not only would they have a fight on their hand, but I'll probably take something home with me. So yeah. So all of that kind of just came together. I had a really good judo instructor. I had a great Muay Thai instructor, and I had a great Jiu-Jitsu instructor. And I found myself underneath a professional fighter running around 190 against a cage, and everything I was attempting to do was not working. And I had my first little experience of, wow, I really don't know how I'm going to get out of this. So I reached out to my Jiu-Jitsu instructor at that time, and I told him I want to be really comfortable underneath somebody twice my size, stacked against a cage, and not only be comfortable, but be able to get out of there. And so we started working from there. I followed him to a full Jiu-Jitsu school to STAR in Carrollton, Texas. And I just kind of never looked back. So.
Wow. Chelsah, a lot going on there.
Did you get all that?
Yeah. It's going to lead to more follow-ups, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
So you had an interest in martial arts. You dabbled in it as a younger person, but you ended up in a situation where somebody was pointing a gun at you. And was that like were you planning on going to train, or was that like it was always going to always be in the back of your mind until that happened?
Right. So it had always been in the back of my mind. I believe, too, like that first experience with martial arts when I was younger was probably really the only discipline I ever really experienced and respected in life. So I think maybe that kind of spoke to me because I was kind of just like wandering along in life, not really sure what I was going to do with myself. So that was kind of in the back of my head. And then I guess having a gun put to your head will really kind of awaken you to like, so what do you want to do in life? Because you should probably go do it now. So yeah, I think what it was the combination of don't sit around and wait for the things that you kind of feel like you're passionate about. Go find out if you're passionate about it immediately before somebody kind of triggers that, as well as just knowing that, I mean, growing up, like we got into a lot of like schoolyard fights, fights with neighbors, you know, like we grew up in neighborhoods where that was just kind of normal. And you start to realize later in life that you weren't fighting, you were just kind of surviving. So very, very world star, you know? So I got to a point where I was like, man, if I really want to know how to take care of myself, I'm probably going to have to put some time and invest into that. And then, I mean, the first week that I walked in there, and I think especially like I try to separate that line between men and women, but I'm also very aware of it. And being the only woman in there, which I think helped me, and realizing how these guys were fighting, like I was like, okay, I made the right decision because I really have no clue what I'm doing. I've really just been surviving thus far in life. So, yeah.
Talk about surviving so far in life and kind of getting into some little situations as a younger person, and then ended up with somebody pointing a gun at you. Oh
yeah.
How'd you survive that?
So that was the second time I've been held at gunpoint. The first time was actually like a home invasion where 3 masked guys ran up in my house. There's a long story to that one. That one's super interesting. But I was a lot younger, and I don't think it sunk in as much. I think it probably left more of like a scar that would reappear later. But I would say like my teen years, first becoming an adult, were pretty crazy and pretty hectic. I definitely lived an interesting life. I grew up in some interesting environments. I don't know how to put it all into words. It's like so much comes back into my mind. I grew up with my mom and my little brother. So she was a single mom with 2 kids who she raised super independent, which is great, but also not her fault when we decided not to listen. So as any curious, rebellious teenager would do, I found myself in a lot of interesting situations. So I hear a lot of people, like, just not going too deep into that. If you're interested, we can go there. But I hear a lot of people say, like, Jiu-Jitsu saved my life. And I love that, and I love that for them. But I feel like through everything I've experienced in life that Jiu-Jitsu didn't really save my life, because I've probably been saved 1,000 times over. But it definitely has changed my life. It definitely has given me discipline. It's given me, I've always had drive, but it gave me something positive to put my drive into. It gave me a platform for someone who didn't really come up with access or like the finances to be able to go out and do everything I want to do. It definitely opened up something for me that I was like, wow, I think I'm really good at this, or I could be really, really good at this. And it just kind of opened that window for me it's like, if you want this, all you got to do is step through. And so it definitely has changed my life, and it's given me something that I can share with others. And not sure if I'm going too far off topic, but because of the things I experienced definitely as a kid, in my teens, early 20s, it gave me something that I can share with youth as well, because that kind of touches close to home for me. I definitely want to be a role model who's worth looking up to, who is worth putting time into, to help like show them, not necessarily be like, hey kids, like if you want to be a good person, or if you don't want to end up like this, you got to do this, so you're going to end up going through this. Nothing like that. Just more like, hey, I have experience with these things, and if that's your choice, that's your choice. But if not, I could show you something that is much better and could probably lead you down a path that would help you reach more goals and dreams than you ever really imagined. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. So
yeah,
how far off topic did I go?
It's all it's really interesting. I'm glad you are okay. I mean, you made it out of those dangerous situations, and hopefully you won't be involved in anything quite like that ever again.
It's weird when you start training, and I think maybe the confidence as well that comes with it, you carry yourself differently. I sometimes wonder, like, did I carry myself as a victim? And that's why, like, when we'll say, like, a predator or whatever, like, looks at you, they're like, oh, that's an easy target, right? Like, I could definitely get something from that one, which had they looked in my purse at the time, they probably would have been like, oh man, I probably should have given her like $20, dude, instead of jacking her. But it's weird because like once I start training, I think I carry myself differently, and like people don't really mess with me anymore. I've had a couple like run-ins, like bar club wise, that didn't, I didn't end up badly out of it, so it was okay. But it's weird, like people don't, I think they look at you now and they're like, oh, that one maybe looks like she might put up a fight. Maybe I should go this way and find somebody else. That's just kind of what I think, but maybe it's my outlook as well, as in I don't draw those things to myself anymore.
Yeah, and maybe I guess it's hard to tell because you need to see it from their perspective as well. But I imagine somebody.
Maybe I don't live in the same areas. I don't know.
Yeah,
could be many things. I don't hang out with the same people. Love my people, by the way. But, yeah, and I stay surrounded by good people and try not to go too far down the alleys these days. So.
Yeah, and try not to get in too much trouble at the nightclubs, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, I had fun back in the day. There were a lot of parties. I grew up kind of around the rave culture, electronic music, warehouse parties. Those were all good. Occasionally, though, when you go to the club, it's so funny. Like, there's always that one guy who kind of wants to hit on you. And I mean, it's funny now. We laugh now, but they never know who you're with, and that's so funny to me. I'm like, if you only knew the people I was surrounded by, you probably wouldn't try to even talk to me at this point. But sometimes they get a little handsy, and you just got to let them know that you chose the wrong one that day, dude. Sorry. So, but yeah, these days, I mean, I don't even care to party. It's like you train so much that when people are like, hey, we should go out and do this, you're like, oh my God, just the thought of that makes me tired. and then like, I don't really drink because it takes my body a day or two to repair. As an athlete, I'm just like, I don't see a point to it anymore. So I'm like, that just sounds like no fun anymore. And it's like a total 180 because used to be like, oh yeah, that sounds great. Like we should definitely go out. But now I'm like, no, I have to train tomorrow. So that doesn't sound fun at all to me. And I guess just from also changing that lifestyle, now I don't really have to worry about those things anymore. So it's a win-win.
Yeah. It sounds like your priorities have changed, which has affected the way you spend your off-the-mat time.
If you could have told me that I'd be the person I am now, even 4 or 5 years ago, I'd be like, okay, dude, sure. And now it's like I don't even remember being that other person too much. I love her for who she was, but I'm like, okay, cool. I'm so glad that we got over that.
Yeah.
So I think that happens with age as well, right? With maturing, like you kind of get over those. You either get stuck or you get over it, is what I assume. And I definitely didn't get stuck, so that's good.
Have you competed most of your time that you've been training?
I have not. So my first competition was in 2012. And I started in 2010. I did a local competition, and I actually had to fight 2 guys. So I won one. I got second place that day, and I was like, you know what? I'm okay with this. I'll take my silver medal. Thank you. I was a white belt. I fought a blue belt and a purple belt. So ideally, I lost to the purple belt, but he was also one of my teammates, so I was like, it's cool, dude. At least we're all taking home medals. And that was my first experience, and I was like, wow, this is pretty awesome. Like, I think I really, really like this. So I wanted to do it again. There's something about just challenging myself when somebody's not trying to give it to you and when they're trying to take it as well. There's just something so, like, just exciting about that. I can't even explain the feeling. It just kind of rises up in you, and you're like, oh my God, let's do this. Like, as long as they'll let us. And then I did like a local competition, and my third competition was World. So that was an interesting shift. I was a new blue belt. I actually won World that year. And it was so funny. I remember competing and then going to like show them my ID, being like, hey, yeah, I won. And they're like, do you want to do absolute? And I was such a noob. I was like, whoa, sure. What is that? And I didn't realize that because there's not that many girls, especially at that time, that I had been doing absolute the whole time because there was not enough girls, or there were no girls at times to even do a weight class or belt. So I was like, sure, I'll do absolute. And that was my first experience. I was like, oh, okay, that's what that meant. And I just felt like when I walked into Worlds, one, it was my first time in California, and I was like, why do I not live here? And two, I felt like I had like walked through the veil, and like I was like, are they going to kick me out? Like, do they know? Am I allowed to be here? Like, because you start seeing all these people that you like. You watch their videos, you watch their competitions. You're like, oh, I really like how that person fights, and then boom, you're right in the middle of them. and you're facing off with them, and you're like, whoa, this is an extreme shift from my local competitions. So continue to compete as much as I can. I don't like making excuses, but I will acknowledge that sometimes the financial part makes it a little tricky to go to all the bigger competitions that I want to go to. So I'll still do like some local competitions, but they're honestly not my favorite because, let's see, I know you're supposed to, ideally you're just supposed to go out there and fight whoever you can. But I don't like the idea of wanting to be a world champion, wanting to be a Pan American champion, and you go to a local competition and you spend your money and you take off work that day, and then they just throw you in a bracket with whoever. To me, that doesn't feel like good preparation for matching off with the best in the world. And if I'm wrong, hopefully somewhere along the way somebody will show me why so that I can change that thought pattern. But that's kind of how I feel. So local competitions are okay. They're definitely getting bigger and better. But I think I spend time working so that I can go to the bigger competitions. So I compete. I've been competing since 2012. But I don't compete as much as a lot of these guys out there are, because I work like 4 jobs too. So trying to work so that you can be on the mats more. I don't think I've found the best recipe yet for that. I'm still trying to figure all that out. But I definitely try to hit worlds, Pan Ams, any fight to win that they'll put me on. I love those guys. I love the guys at Fight to Win Pro. Shout out to Seth, Missy, the whole Team No Sleep. I love those guys. So anything that they'll have me on, I'm all for it. I'd love to be on EVI as well. Kind of been looking into that. So that's it.
Cool.
At this point.
It sounds like you're up to competing as much as possible, but you are definitely grounded in reality. You need to work, and you need to, when you do compete, it can affect other things as well. It
does, and I grounded in reality, I'm not sure about that. But I definitely don't want to be that person who's not carrying my own weight. And again, like growing up, knowing mostly survival, it's like I want to live. I don't just want to survive. But I also have all these, dreams that I'm chasing. So it's like I try to do everything at the same time and make it all happen, even when people are telling me, hey, when you put in so much time into this, it's going to take away from this, or when you put into that, it takes away from this. And I'm just so hard-headed. I'm like, no, I'm going to do all of it. And I love you guys, but stop telling me that.
I think one of the values people get out of the smaller local tournaments is that it helps get their numbers of matches up, and that, I guess, the idea of that is to help get you a little bit less nervous. If this is your third time competing is at Worlds, I'd imagine you're pretty nervous. But if it's like your 30th time competing,
it's weird. Yeah. So the nerve thing, I guess it was kind of there in the beginning because I see it for what it is, but it's so weird. I think because of just going through some crazy ass things in life, like this is not the scariest thing you've ever done. Like, you're going to be all right. But I think for me, probably what would definitely benefit from that would be understanding and acknowledging and putting into play rules and regulations, which has not been my strong point so far. I kind of just, you get so used to playing your game, and there's different rule sets, right? So like Fight to Win is almost a free-for-all, which I absolutely love, because I'm like, okay, we're going to do jiu-jitsu. Nobody's going to lose or 2 points. Nobody's going to sit there and hold you, because that doesn't get you a win. So I definitely fight more to that. Reaping is like not a thing there, so it's okay. It's just like, oh, I'm putting my leg over here so that I can continue to set up this move to defeat you. And I think I have that very fight-driven mentality. Whereas like IBJJF, I've run into a couple of things there because I thought I could turn my leg this way, but it turns out no. So I think whereas the nerve thing, it's so weird. I think I just love what I'm doing so much that I'm not even nervous. Plus I meditate like crazy because it's not more than nervous, I'm one of those people who just gets very excited. I'm very passionate about life and the things that I love, be it people, the arts, places, what have you. So I love what I'm doing so much. I get so excited about it, and I try not to expend all my energy just on being excited. So whereas some people are nervous, I think I'm excited. So I just have to concentrate on being calm, very, very calm before the fight, which after competition, after fights, especially with a win, because that adrenaline just kicks right in, I am so freaking hyper. I think I annoy myself, but it's because I think I've been trying to be calm for the months building up to it so much, and that's just not naturally me, that it just all comes like rushing out. So I definitely wouldn't say I'm nervous. I don't really get nervous. I think I train to the point to where there's no reason for me to be nervous, because if you prepare and you train, it's like, there was nothing untouched. And it's just time to go out there and do what you've planned, do what you want to do. I also have like such a free flow type of sparring as well, I guess you could say, that it's like if my plan doesn't work, I don't freak out. I just continue to do jujitsu, and I'm not nervous about that. And I just train so much that I'm like, if you get out there and find out that you missed something, that was the whole reason. You went out there and competed. You really try to win. You try to bring home the gold or the belt or just the money, if they have that as well, the win in general. And if not, then, I mean, it's very cliche, you win or you learn, but it's so very true. I don't think I've competed one time where I was like, oh, I should have done this, or I should have prepared for this better. I don't think I've ever felt like I should have prepared better. I definitely am like, oh, now I need to work on that. Or, oh, she shut that down so quick. Or I was so close to this, but I turned the wrong way. I think I definitely I bring home so much more that I'm not nervous. I'm just not. I'm just not nervous. I think I just love what I'm doing and I prepare for it. And if you do that, it's like, what do you have to be nervous about?
Yeah. Chelsah, that's, I think, an important thing that we don't really think about a lot is the self-talk after the match. And if the first time you lost, like your first time you competed against two guys and you beat one of them and you lost one of them. If you got home and you're like, this sucks, jiu-jitsu didn't work even against both these guys, you'd have been done within a month or two at most. But you have a way to take a positive positive look at it and build towards the next one.
You have to, or you'll shut down. And I think life has helped me. Don't get me wrong, I'm super hard on myself. I always have been. I'm very, very, very hard. But I'm not hard to the point where I'm going to stop my learning. I'm hard to the point where I'm like, okay, I'll ridicule myself a little bit, and then I'm like, all right, now you need to figure out how to fix this and how to go forward and progress from this, or else you're just gonna kind of wither away. And I think, again, I love this because like my life, whereas a lot of people would have regrets in the experience that I've had, I don't regret anything. I may not be proud or happy of all the stuff that I've been through or the stuff that I saw growing up, but it definitely let me know that I can survive. I can go through so many things and just continue to come out of it stronger, better, and it just prepared me, I guess, for that type of martial arts, never quit, go further fighting style, because the mental is there. Because I've been broken down, honestly, so many times in life, that it just prepared me for being broken down mentally and physically in a fight or in a competition, whatever you choose to call it. Me personally, if somebody's trying to choke me out or break my arm, I feel like it's a fight. So call it what you will. But yeah, whereas again, most people would have regrets and just kind of be like, I'm a horrible person, or, these bad things have happened to me. I'm just like, I love everything I went through, even if I hated it at one point, because it's done nothing but build me into the person that I am. And I honestly love who I am today. I love my life. I love that I have the experiences I do, because I'm going to be able to, once I get to a point where I feel like I've made enough positive waves to create a tsunami of positive, then I'll really be able to help others who have maybe experienced some of the stuff that I have, which there's a lot more people out there who have than most people realize. And I'll be able to help them with that, as opposed to somebody who's like, oh, I want to understand what you're going through. I kind of have an idea. I'll be like, dude, I've been there. Like, I totally know what it's like. I'm not here to judge you. I'd love to help you get stronger and be better. Because if I can, you totally can. And I kind of think that just kind of plays into like purpose of life, right? We're not just here to gain everything that we can for ourselves. I believe we're here to gain for ourselves as well as help many, many more than we do ourselves, right?
Yeah, that's it's a good perspective. It's kind of like you hear the analogy of you're on the airplane and it's having trouble, and you put your own mask on first, you get your own life in order, and then you start helping others. And I think that's what you're doing.
It took time, and I think Jiu-Jitsu has helped me with that, because Jiu-Jitsu helps you face off with that ego that won't allow you to grow at times. That's where a lot of people continue or quit, right? Like you're saying, after your competitions, you lose, you would just quit if you can't acknowledge that you need to learn from this. I think and Jiu-Jitsu is such a platform to just not only help get yourself and believe in yourself and know who you are, but to help you become so connected with just people from the same walks of life, as well as people that you'd probably never, like, you might say hi, bye, but you wouldn't really spend an hour with in life. And like the mats and Jiu-Jitsu, just like in many martial arts, just bring you together under one roof for like hours at a time. And you're like, this is amazing. Like, this is the most amazing thing I think I've ever experienced in my life. So I definitely want to share that with others. And I try to like conform the world. I really do. Like anywhere I'm at, I'm like constantly passing out cards. If anybody will listen for 2 seconds, I will talk to them about it and try to get them to show up at the school, and I don't care who they are. so yeah.
That's cool. Hey, I wanted to ask you earlier, I kind of glossed over it hearing those stories you were telling. Just to kind of get to know you better, could you maybe describe your game or some of the techniques that you like to play the most?
Yeah. So my favorite techniques are the ones that give me the win, for sure. I'd definitely say I play a lot of like butterfly guard, a lot of open guard. I think that definitely comes from some of more of the MG teachings, as well as I'm just a person who likes to move around a lot. I don't really like being stuck in one place. Lately, working from there, I've been working with a friend of mine, Caddy Strite, and Jessica, and we've been working like a lot of transitions and setups, so I'm finding myself there a lot as well. I couldn't really pinpoint which ones, though. Just anything that keeps me from being stuck in a position too long and will lead me to setting up a submission. So I find that for me, probably butterfly and arm drags, because it's both a defense and an offense in a sense. As I can protect myself, keep myself from being submitted. And for some reason, like the further I go, being in butterfly, I find that a lot of times when an opponent is trying to defend themselves against something that I'm doing, like a position that I'm setting up, from the butterfly position, it seems that every time they try to get out of something, they're leading themselves into something deeper, because there are so many setups from there, as well as I know that in my butterfly guard, like I can go forward at any time. It's very easy. Well, I wouldn't say easy. I guess it depends who you're fighting, right? or competing against. But have more of a chance of being able to go from sitting to, knees to standing to a more dominant position. But at the same time, it's so weird, because used to, I would feel like if I'm sitting or if I'm on my back, I'm not in a dominant position, but that's like totally changed for me over these past couple of years, because there's so many submissions from there. And it's almost a mind trick sometimes, because I believe that the person on top almost thinks they have the best of you because you're underneath them. And it's just, Jiu-Jitsu has just evolved to where that's just so not the truth anymore. So yeah, I'd say my game is constantly changing. So whereas I may say that today, 3 months from now, everything I'm doing today, I probably won't use it all. It'll all go out the window. But another, I don't know really what technique you would call this, but also my coach has introduced me into these really awesome, like, finger moldings, I guess you would call it, to where I realized that I don't even have to use my thumb or my pinkies very often. And you can completely mold and attach yourself to somebody's body with those 3 fingers and just grip. And it's almost like you don't have to fight them anymore. No matter where they go, you're just kind of hanging on for the ride, right? And you just kind of, you let them wear themselves down, and then you're still connected to them and set up in a position to start to act from there. So I don't really know what that's called, but it's this really cool little trick that I'm learning. So I'm kind of stuck on that right now as a technique that I've added to my game. And then I want to say takedowns. Takedowns have my interest right now. I wouldn't say I'm like the best at takedowns, but I'm definitely like realizing just how much a complete game you got to have at least 2 or 3 that are kind of your bread and butter is necessary to really like get it started. Because I'm not a person who likes to pull guard. I'm just not. I'm not like some people. I don't think it's a bad thing because there are plenty of guard pullers who are just killing it. But it's just not something that I tend to move towards to just sit down when it's time for us to go to the ground. Like I would much rather take you down and then start from there. So yeah, I think right now I've just been really heavy on like arm drags, butterfly, and just anything that puts me in a good position to set you up and submit you. I'm not a person who has to stick to this type of game or this type of game. I'm a very like free flowing, like, let's see what we can find here. You know, I try to go in with a game plan, especially in competition, but I'm also just a very like, I just like to constantly move and set it up, move, set it up, move, set it up. And a lot of these girls these days, I think it's really good that I've come into just that type of sparring, of rolling, of competing, because these girls these days never stop moving, is what I've noticed, at least in my weight bracket. They're constantly going for submissions. They're constantly trying to set you up. Everything you do, they have an answer for. Everything you do, they just have something else to throw back at you. So maybe that's where my open guard playing really came into play as well, is like, you know, you just can't stay in one place for too long. And I feel like any other place that I've tried to play, like close guard or just kind of smashing down on top, is great for a moment. But then I'm like, okay, you should be setting something up. The clock's running down constantly. You want to finish this. And I think that's another big thing, is I like to finish things. I feel like if the clock runs out and I won or lost from points, it's just not satisfying. So my game is definitely whatever gets me to the finish. But I'd say like my control center is probably definitely a butterfly guard.
Sounds like a fun style to watch. You're always moving a lot.
It is so fun. You know, it's funny you say that. We actually had a visitor not too long ago come to our school. I think he was a black belt out of MG in New York. And I didn't know him, but I was like, of course, you know, you're visiting, let's roll. And at the end, his comment was, wow, you have a really fun guard. And I was like, I don't know what you mean by that, but I'm going to take that as positive. But I think he kind of went into, he was like, yeah, you like never stop moving. He's like, and you do all these crazy things with your legs. And I'm like, yeah, that's called offense. Like, I'm just trying to win the whole time and not let you smash me. But, yeah, I hope it's fun to watch. I hope that myself as a competitor is someone who's fun to watch, because then definitely more people will be apt to put you into their shows or bring you onto theirs and put you out there because you'll put on a good show, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested in the idea of that, I guess, 3-finger grip or to grab somebody.
Yeah.
So we're not, in the same room, but is there a way you could explain this to where I could try it when I am training?
Yes. So ideally, I mean, there's like so let's say you're sitting in butterfly guard, right? And the person is on their knees and your hand fighting. So let's say you take your right arm and reach across to grab their right wrist. So then you would take your left hand and cup it behind their tricep. You know of this, yes?
Yeah.
It's like an arm drag setup, right? Where you can kind of set up that sweep as well. So that little grip you have behind their tricep with your hand. So if you even take out your pinky and your thumb, just start applying that around forearms, ankles. You can apply it around biceps, triceps, wrist. It is the craziest thing. It's like you're not overcommitting, but you're completely glued with those fingers. And, I mean, you really mold it to whatever body part you're gripping onto and just let them move and just keep that part tense against them, but let the rest of your body move wherever they choose to move. I mean, obviously being careful not to smash face, right? But just, mold that to whatever. I would start with just behind the tricep. Or like if you weave through, right, you wizard through the tricep and come around the front of the forearm and just grip on and keep that molded there and let them move around. And you'll start to see, you're like, wow, this is a crazy good grip. And you're not tired. You're not worn out. You're not struggling to hold it. And they're doing all the moving for you. And then when they finally see that they can't get you off them and they try something else, you're almost like already set up to go into the next transition. Some crazy stuff. I don't know. My coach showed me it, and now I'm kind of obsessed. So thanks to him, now I have this like new focal point that I've never even really heard a lot of people talk about this, but maybe it's something that will come up more, or I've just been asleep because nobody has ever shown me this. But yeah, it's just weird. Just trying to mold yourself to people without overcommitting just by your hands. And it's crazy the control that you start to find with it.
That's a pretty cool concept, and why not tonight, while you're out there training, whoever's listening, try it out and see if it works for you.
Yeah.
And it's hard to understand how this is going to be so effective, but once you actually feel it, I think that's part of the impressive thing.
Yes, and if you guys have any questions, like feel free to hit me up on social media or just whatever. And then if it gets to a point where everybody's like, "What is this she's talking about?" and be like, "All right, coach, we got to do this video real quick," so people don't think that I'm just making stuff up because I'm bored in life, and they can see how effective this is, and maybe he'll let us like peek into his game a little bit. So
that's fun.
Yeah, I love Wristlock too. By the way, Wristlocks are just so pretty.
If somebody is wanting to start learning wrist locks, what would you recommend for a good first wrist lock to try to pick up?
Well, so when I got into it, it was a little more aggressive. It continued to happen to me, and I had no idea. I would say if you want to start working wrist locks, definitely talk to an upper belt about it. Man, it's such a dangerous game, right? I mean, it can be if you don't know what you're doing, because it takes like 2 seconds and your wrist just pops. But it's so sneaky. I would say just work with an upper belt, not just any upper belt. Work with an upper belt who has experience with that, and maybe work with an upper belt who they also are into wrist locks, because they're studying it, they're trying to figure it out, they're trying to learn it, that hopefully that they won't hurt you in trying to learn, and that they're aware enough of what's happening to them that you won't hurt them while learning as well. The main way I learned at the beginning is I kept trying to push my coach up, or to push him off of me from bottom, and I would have my hands under his hip, and he would just kind of lean to the side with his hip, and every time I was like, I just didn't even know what was happening at that time. I thought I was getting into a better position, and all of a sudden I feel like my wrist is broke. And of course, the things that bite you, if they don't like completely tear you apart and ruin you, you're like, I want to dissect that. I want to find out more about that. That thing that's conquering me, and go ahead and conquer it back. But I'm one of those people, I'm very much like, you hit me first and I hit you last. So it's like, okay, you wrist lock me, tell me everything you know, so that one day I can probably use it against you. But of course, in the most respectful way.
Yeah, that's how it is on the mat. We'll gladly show you how to beat this up.
That's the idea, right? So I've been talking, we've gone through some things in our DFW community with martial artists and with some pretty significant people in our lives. passing away. I just had one of my first coaches, Mohsen, pass away, and it brought together a lot of people in the community. And we actually had a conversation about that. And I was talking to one of my coaches about how I have this 14-year-old, Danielle Calderon. She's phenomenal, right? she is the future, right? But the future is now. And how I'll teach her stuff and she just comes back and she just uses all of it. And one of my friends, training partners, coaches, Chris Story, he's like, that's what happens. He's like, you teach them and your favorite ones, you teach them and they just come back and they bite you with it. And then like there's a group of us sitting around and we all just kind of came to the conclusion. We're just like, yeah, but that's the whole idea. You know, it's like one day the snake bites you. You didn't see it coming, but at the same time, you're so proud because you're like, you have been listening, you have been learning, you have been applying. And now, like my game, I have to change it. So it's like it's cyclical, right? Like it helps them get better. They come back and bite you with it. Now your game changes, you get better, and then it just continues on like that. So, yeah, I think that's the idea, right? That we teach each other and eventually it shows up and you're like, I wasn't ready. I didn't know you had been paying attention so well.
Yeah. Sometimes the teacher-student roles kind of switch a little bit, especially if the teacher did their job right.
Right?
Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. It just feeds into life and what life is. I mean, at all times, in one way or another, we are all in some form the teacher or the student and vice versa at all times. Because there's always something that you know that you can teach me. And even if it be something that like I don't care to have in my life, I'm at least aware of it now because you helped me become aware of it. Or it's something that I'm like, oh, that's amazing, and I would like to find out more about that, or also start to be like that and incorporate that into my life, or, you know, transferring into my game as well. So, yeah.
Chelsah, you kind of stumbled upon Jiu-Jitsu through looking into MMA, and now you've had a lot of success with Jiu-Jitsu, and it sounds like it's really your big passion. Any idea if you'll ever look back into MMA and consider that, or are you full steam with Jiu-Jitsu?
So my feelings there is, one, if I was going to do MMA, I should have kept going. I believe there's a longer career for me in Jiu-Jitsu. I believe that women are definitely have broken through in MMA. But I know that their salaries have still not broken through. And again, there's just something about, like, I was very passionate in the beginning about being a cage fighter. And then just going into jiu-jitsu and competition, like, it just really, I became obsessed, but in the most positive ways. And I really think that is what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to put my time into jiu-jitsu. I'm meant to put my, who I want to be in the future or the present into jiu-jitsu. I still love training other martial arts. I still love Muay Thai. I still love judo. I still think it's necessary to know all of those, maybe not to the fullest extent, but, you know, so that you can handle yourself standing as well as on the ground. But I don't see myself going down that path at this point. I think I'm much more invested in building a life and a career around jiu-jitsu. And the one thing I love about that is, like, MMA, I feel like for women, like, you maybe top out around your 40s if you're lucky, if you don't top out in your 30s. And that's just my opinion, humbly so, not to offend anybody else, because I know we are capable of amazing things. But I know jiu-jitsu, man, I can do that till I'm 70, 80. I could do it till I can't walk. And then honestly, you don't even have to walk. You can still do it. And there's something much more appealing to me about that. But I still love and respect mixed martial arts and the people who choose to take on that life. And I still want them to teach me. So if you're out there, please teach me. So I don't ever see myself going back down that. Now, if I can say this without getting too ahead of myself, but we all got to have dreams, right? One thing I would like playing into MMA is to become so good at jiu-jitsu and accomplish enough things in jiu-jitsu that when there are the women that we have now, as well as there will be many more in the UFC, in Bellator, in Invicta, in MMA. You notice they have like their particular coaches. Like they'll have a ground game coach, they'll have a stand-up coach, they'll have an MMA coach, and they build that team. I definitely want to be one of those jiu-jitsu, not just people, but women who are so good that these girls are like, yeah, I want Chelsah Lyons on my team. I want her to be teaching me my ground. I want her to work on my ground so that I can incorporate it into my game and go out there and win. So I definitely see that in myself later in life. I mean, I am but a lowly brown belt at this time. So definitely like got to get to that starting line of black belt first, and then continue to accomplish things, continue to learn, and incorporate as much as I can into my game so that I'm one of those people that they seek out. And that's kind of a goal or like one thing I see for myself later in life as well. So that is probably the aspect that I would like to have in MMA.
Chelsah, I think there's two ways that coaches find themselves in a situation where they're coaching top athletes like you're talking about. And one of them is people seek them out, and that's going to happen if you're a top-level coach. People are going to come find you and want to train with you. Another one, and we've talked about it a little bit, is building really good students, and those students become those athletes. And I think that's another path that you will have because clearly you guys are doing things right down there. And some of your students that may be white belts first day today, that person she might be the next champion in some MMA event, and you'll be in her corner coaching her there.
Yes. And that's the hope we have, and be it a woman or a man, honestly. I mean, because I feel like I can teach both. And again, like I want to be that good to where they're not just like, oh, this chick wants to teach jiu-jitsu. I don't think so. They'll be like, which I don't think a lot of people think of me that way if they know me. Honestly, that's not the feedback I get, but definitely want to build those students. Like, as much as I want to, again, separate that line between men and women and just be open to teaching everybody, I do have, a special place in my heart for the females who do choose to continue forth in this, because it's definitely not the easiest route to choose, I'd say, as a female. But, I mean, we're evolving so much to where those lines are definitely being cut. I mean, they're even, like, cutting the whole bathroom situation, right? So we're good. Like, we're going to continue to be okay. But, I mean, so saying that to say, at Marcelo Garcia, I was the only girl for like 2 years. Marcelo Garcia of Dallas, let me get that correct. So I was the only girl for 2 years, and we started a women's program. My coach believed in me enough that he's like, hey, why don't you start teaching a ladies class? And I was like, me? Are you sure? Like, I can barely listen to direction, let alone teach somebody direction. But he believed in me, and we built a program. And now we have 25 to 30 active women, like, all week. And it is amazing to see. We have some women competing. We have some men competing as well. And we are building students. Not everybody wants to compete, and we respect them. The fact that they just want to train with us, like, I love that. I respect them for that. But the ones that do want to compete, I definitely have like a special interest in. And yeah, if we can if we can build students who go out there and perform well, one, that's all them. They're the ones putting in the time. They're the ones, choosing to listen to what they're being taught. They're the ones who choose to, try and maintain that mental aspect you have to go out there and be a great competitor. And we're just kind of like the guides in a sense, I would say, if that's not being too like, I don't want to sound egotistical, just a guide as in like, hey, maybe if you try it this way, this will work out for you. Or when I compete, this is what I found works for me. Maybe try that. Hopefully it works for you. If not, let's get together and figure out what else works. But definitely, yeah, I like what you're saying. Like, if you can build help build the athletes, like, it speaks for itself. Right. And then kind of plays into people seeking you out because it speaks for itself. So, yeah, I definitely agree with those two aspects for sure.
And you spoke a little bit about wanting to be a good, positive role model for people who are training or having some difficult times or just want to get better at martial arts. And I think that what you're doing now, you're competing and you're doing well and you're showing that positive attitude even when things don't go well. Those are all things that are like paying money into that bank of being that role model for when the students want somebody to look up to. You're right there, and you say, it's all them, and it is them doing all the hard work and all the discipline and eating right and training off the mat and doing everything just right. But it also helps a lot to have somebody to look up to.
Yes. And I think I really am passionate about that because, again, no regrets, right, about what I've been through. I love what I've been through. It helps me become more aware of the world. I've seen, without going too deep, I've seen a lot. I've seen abusive relationships. I've seen addiction. I've seen all that. I've lived through a lot of that crazy stuff. And I believe if maybe I had some different people to look up to in my life, then maybe it would have been different. But again, saying that, that's not what I wish or hope for myself, because I had to go through and see and live all those things to be who I am, to be somebody who wants to be a role model for these people as well. The people I was around, like friend-wise at that point, not expecting them to be role models, they were going through the same stuff with their families, and that's probably why we all came together and common understanding and like helping each other through those points of life at that time. But I want to be that person who, if a kid is there or an adult, and maybe they don't have that person, I want to be somebody who's worth being that. And I want to know that I was a person who, no matter what, whether we get along outside of jiu-jitsu or not, that while we're in there, while we're on the mats, if you need somebody to talk to, if you need somebody to help you, that I am that person, probably because I didn't really have that person. And sometimes when you don't have something, you either get upset about it or you're like, maybe I should be that somebody, so that the next person who comes out behind you doesn't miss having that, because you acknowledge the fact that it probably would have been really nice to have that. And that might have changed the course of your life. And though you're not necessarily trying to change people's lives, you definitely want to be a person who, if they did want something better out of life, they're like, wow, like she's got this. Like, how did she get it? And I'll be like, listen here, kids. Like I promise I haven't always been like this. Like this was through a lot of grit.
Yeah.
A lot of fighting for stuff in life, and I just want to be that good person, man, because it feels good. You don't even do it for payback, but just the feeling that you get back from it, if you can be a role, man, just to even hear you say that back to me, like you could be a role model. I'm like, oh, so weird, because I don't know that I could have ever been that person. But had I not gone through those things, I still wouldn't be that person. So it's very two-sided, right? I definitely, going through that, I want to be that person who's worth, being a role model, and who these kids go, oh man, yeah, Chelsea's the coolest one, be like her. And they'll be like, don't be like me, be you, but here's some cool stuff you can use along the way, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, you talked a little bit about having your women's class and how much that's grown. That sort of thing really wouldn't happen if they didn't have instructor that they really enjoyed seeing every class and felt like they were getting something out of the class. And so,
yeah,
I
agree. I agree. We have a lot of fun in class. There's good music, but I'm partial, clearly. We have fun in there, it's not too stuffy. Like, we laugh, especially in women's classes. Like, I mean, there are things that come up topic-wise that they probably wouldn't talk about if there were a bunch of dudes in there, and it's cool. It's cool to have that format and that openness. And then also kind of a go-between, because there are some women who come in there who were like, I would never go to a class with a bunch of sweaty men and try to grapple them. Don't be crazy. But I like this class because I'm a badass and I know I can be a badass, and you women are going to help me get to that. And then to watch them become so confident in their abilities that they're like, hey, I'm going to go to this co-ed class now. And you're like, sweet. Like, that's the whole point. But on what you're saying, I'm very appreciative of my coach and my teammates who did believe in me enough, and then my students who believe in me enough to think that I was worth being put in a position to have that platform to grow something like that. So, yeah, so thank you for that acknowledgement.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Chelsah, I know we're in a little short on time, but I do want to ask you if put yourself back in your shoes and you were starting that women's class and you felt like you were a little unexperienced and you really didn't really feel like you were ready for that. But if you could give yourself a cheat sheet with maybe 4 or 5 things, do this or don't do that, what would be on that cheat sheet?
Oh, man. Look at the people who believe in you, right? And if you believe in them, why wouldn't you believe in yourself? So instead of questioning, am I worth, can I do this, which is kind of natural in that situation, look at the people who believe in you, and if you don't believe in yourself that much, then look through their eyes. That would be my first thing. Because if you believe in them and they believe in you, why wouldn't you believe in yourself? What else? Study everything you can. And then when you go to teach, you're going to realize you're not going to use half of it. But I mean, it's like anything you want to be good at. Read about it. Like, look up other women who are leading women's classes, women's open mat. Reach out to them if you want. You'd be surprised how many people will communicate back to you. And you don't have to take exactly what they're saying, but maybe gather an idea and then maybe apply what you do want to who you want to be as an instructor. Like anything, just do it. Just try it out, because until you go out there and do it, you're never going to know if even it really is what you want to do, or just you might surprise yourself at just how good you could be at it. Always be open to learning, even once you start. Just with anything, always be a student. So you have this idea, you have this plan, this vision of what you want your class or what you want to be as an instructor, and just be open, because it's going to consistently shift. You may keep some of your base ideas, but you have to be open to movement in anything that you do, just like Jiu-Jitsu, right? You don't want to get a standstill. It usually doesn't turn out too well for you. So definitely that. Definitely be open to other people's ideas, learn from other people, and really have an idea of who you want to be as an instructor and who you want to be as a martial artist. To me, above everything, if you're going to choose to take that role, you need to think of who you are as a martial artist and who you want to be and how you want to be portrayed, because that's going to it's going to ring through everything you do, right? So that's just my couple of things, I think. And ask questions, right? Ask questions, and hopefully you get some answers. Or if you have the people I've had in life, they're like, figure it out, which will help you grow, because they're actually helping you. If you pay close attention, they're doing things and saying things to you at all times that you really start to absorb and go, oh, they've been helping me the entire time. They just didn't give it to me in the way that I was like, please show me this, right? Know that, man, how do I even say that? So forever when I started, which compared to others, which we shouldn't compare ourselves all the time, but acknowledgement-wise, I can't imagine how it was in the beginning for the women who really came into this when there were no women, as in Tachi and Letitia and just all those women who were really out there doing it when there were no women. And I came in 2010 and there were still no women. So if it isn't for the women who choose to step up and take that role, then there wouldn't be as many of us here, right? So if you want to be one of those instructors, one of those female instructors who really like ignite something in others. Just believe in yourself and know that you're meant to do that, because without you, then we don't have women standing up and becoming instructors and opening a door for women who don't want to train with men, who will later on probably find that it's going to really help them to train with men and women, because you learn something from both, as well as much as we love the sport and we love the game, we get into martial arts, a lot of us, because we really want to know how to protect ourselves, and we really want to know how to, be in control of our own bodies. And for women, more often than not, if you are attacked, it's not going to be by another woman. And if it is, defend yourself and whoop her ass. but you shouldn't have random women attacking you on the street, right? I don't know what's going on if you do. But if you do end up in a situation, more often than not, it's going to be a man attacking you. So again, like, be that woman who can open a door for women to get comfortable enough to want to train with men as well, so that they can know how to really handle themselves in a situation. But again, it's like the pillars, right? We need those women who are willing to step up and believe in themselves as much as the good of what they're doing, so that they can bring as many women into this as we can, is really what it is. That's just all opinions, right?
No, that's a lot of great advice and a great outlook as far as where Jiu-Jitsu is going. And because if you look back where it was, so few women, and then looking now, it's definitely grown, and see no reason why it won't grow to near 50% of the people practicing are women at one point. And go ahead.
There are days that we actually have like 50% women, 50% men, or like more women than men on the mats. And I'm like, man, this is so. Without sounding too cheesy, our last belting ceremony, I got a little teary-eyed. And it was honestly because of the pride that like welled up inside of me, because one, I've never seen that many women at a belting ceremony. And I knew like, and I guess, at belting ceremonies, they're my fave. It's like the ball, right, for jiu-jitsu. Like, everybody comes out, everybody's family. You get to see who's really all at your school at one time. It's just amazing vibes. People are getting promoted. People are getting disappointed. It's just great, right? So I saw how many women we had there, and I was just taken back. I was like, wow, I don't think I've ever seen this many women, not only at a belting ceremony, but all moving up in ranks. And there was a very just like proud moment for me there, because I was like, man, I remember being the only one at the belting ceremony always. And it was just, I was like, wow, that's a good feeling right there. That's good stuff, man.
Yeah, and there's no reason why clubs or even jiu-jitsu as a whole wouldn't be able to tip past the 50% mark. I mean, you started, you thought, Muay Thai or kickboxing was going to be the thing for you, but you quickly realized that jiu-jitsu was much more attractive to you. And
it was.
Yeah, and I'm glad it was. But I think that might be a common experience where a lot of women get funneled away from one martial art into jiu-jitsu. And it could be any martial art, but I think women perform great at jiu-jitsu. There's a lot of things.
Man,
and as the community builds with people like you, it's gonna really be looking at a tipping point eventually.
Man, I appreciate that. I hope so. But don't get me wrong, man, I love my guy training partners. Those guys help me so much. And I think, too, like, growing up around a lot of guys, like, and always, like, being able to wrestle or, like, punch them in the arm and them not get mad at me and stop being my friend probably helped that as well. I do love my guys, man, because they help me realize just how much I have inside of me when I'm challenged, right? But again, there's that soft spot of like, yes, we can, the further we go. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. I don't know if I'm even like, I don't know like exactly who I am in this community at this point, but I definitely appreciate that, because I am working towards being somebody who's worth acknowledging, training with, training under, as well, competing with, talking to about martial arts, so things like that. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean that, and it's fun to watch this grow, and we all come to jiu-jitsu for different reasons, but we end up finding that there's a lot of off the mat benefits. And I think that as more and more women get exposed to that, they'll either stick with it longer, or they'll be more likely to show up at the door anyway.
Right. Yeah. And it is. It's the weirdest thing. Like, you come into this with an idea or no ideas of what you're going to gain from it, and then it just completely penetrates every aspect of your life. Everything from just how you carry yourself to like little situations that would usually bother you and send you over the edge. You're like, man, I survived a choke for like 4 minutes yesterday, so that doesn't bother me. Like, we're good. These things are small in comparison to what I put myself through. So it's definitely I call it a therapy, which I'm sure many of us do. And it's definitely like a couples therapy as well. I noticed like people who can train together that are in a relationship, like they seem to get along a lot better more often than not. I know in my relationship, we definitely get along great. And I think it's because when you spend that much time trying to choke each other out, you're like, what were we arguing about? Oh no, we're good. Whatever. Like, it's all fair now. We're good. So yeah, it's definitely therapeutic and just starts to feed into many other aspects in life. Things like that usually would be scary to you or maybe stress you out. It's just, you can conquer these things because your mental is just, jiu-jitsu changes you mentally for sure. One, being able to face yourself and acknowledge the things that you should or shouldn't agree with in life, facing your ego. That's probably the biggest thing they talk about, right? Is you come head to head with yourself, which is where a lot of people drop off or continue to go. And just, just the brother or sisterhood that you build through this is just, it's something that has no price, in my opinion. So,
yeah. And you've got a great group down there.
Oh man, my group is so good. Shout out MG Dallas. Love my people, by the way. So yeah, we're like the misfits of jiu-jitsu. I swear. Like some of these like jiu-jitsu schools you see, it looks like a guerrilla army, which I love. I'm like, oh man, this is going to be so challenging. This is going to be great. But we have so many people from different walks of life, again, that you would think like would probably never talk to each other in a day. And they've all come together there, and we have a great time. There's such a good energy there. There's like just no judgment, and I love what we have there. And I've been able to watch it grow over the last 4 years, going on 5 years. And it's great, like, to whereas we used to have like, oh, you want a guy who has like the berimbolo skinny, like wiggly game, go talk to that guy. Or, oh, you want to wrestle a bear? Like, go talk to that guy over there. Or, oh, you want a girl who's quick? Well, here she is. There's this one girl. And now it's like we've evolved and we've gained so many more people, I think, because of the vibe that we have there and because the jiu-jitsu is so good there, that now we have like, oh, you want that type of game? Well, there's like 6 to 10 people over there who play that game. Or there's 6 to 10 people over here who play this game. And we've just continued to grow, and it's beautiful. I love that place so much. So shout out to Rob Abel for keeping the doors open in a place that all of us can come and find like a common area to train and grow together. So yeah, it's good stuff.
That sounds good. Do you have anybody that's supporting you, any sponsors out there?
Sponsors, I have Nick Mitra for BJJ Tees, or Just Roll as most people seem to recognize them as. Steve Peck, my boyfriend, because he sponsors my mentality. Okay. And he totally understands how important it is to be on the mats as much as I am. He's also a martial artist, so he gets that, and that to me is a sponsorship that no money can compare to. Who else? Let's see. There are many of my teammates who have put time, effort, and even finances into me accomplishing dreams, into me getting to where I need to go to accomplish these things. There are so many of them that I wish we had time to name all of them. So you guys know who you are. Please accept my thank you. Also, the Carters have put a lot into me. All my students and any of my students that took time to believe in me being somebody who's worth listening to for an hour at a time, and training with me. My family is definitely, I'd say they're sponsors in the sense that they prepared me for this thing called life. Who else? Oh, it's on the spot. There's so many people. How do you not thank everybody? One of my first coaches, D, he's not a sponsor, but he really showed me that Jiu-Jitsu is definitely the path I should go down. Who else? Then everybody. You guys know who you are. If I missed your name, please forgive me, but know that I appreciate you.
Yeah, a lot of important
but
people.
Mainly right now, sponsor name is BJJT. Those guys believe in me. They promote me. Those guys, those guys have done well by me.
That's cool. Do you have a favorite thing? If someone goes to the website, what should they look for?
On BJJTs?
Yeah, I'll put a link to it in the show notes.
Everything. My favorite thing is my rash guards, but I don't know if they sell those or if they only give them to their sponsored athletes. So if you love their rash guards as much as I do, keep training hard and become sponsored. So also Muscle Farm. Muscle Farm is sponsoring me right now for 6 months because I won submission of the night on Fight to Win Pro. So that's been pretty awesome. BJJTs has so many. I mean, if you go to any jiu-jitsu event, you're going to find at least 1 to 5 of their shirts, hats, hoodies out there. Those guys are just kind of killing it in that area. So I'm pretty proud to be a part of them. Let's see, Fight to Win. They're not my sponsors, but man, in a sense, I mean, they have, presented a platform for us to go up there and represent jiu-jitsu. For us, even as when I was a purple belt, going into brown belt, to be able to compete in something, to be able to make money doing something that we love in a sport or an art that hasn't had the most money put into it yet, but it is happening. So, I mean, they're not necessarily sponsors. I mean, we put in the work as well. We make sure we get the word out. We sell their tickets and so on and so forth. But, man, they've done so much, just in my opinion, for jiu-jitsu and just for me as an athlete. And I love those guys. So sponsors or not, it feels like they're sponsoring jiu-jitsu. So definitely a shout out to those guys as well. And then, my coach, man. My coach has really believed in me. He's done a lot. Rob Abel, he's done a lot to see that I could be the best athlete that I could, even at times where I didn't believe it was possible, because my understanding of finances in life probably hasn't always been the healthiest. Just all of you that believe in me, all of you that allow me to continue to train and compete the way that I do. Cryozone, which is a place that allowed me to be an ambassador, who I ended up actually working for. It's actually the cryo free, so that I don't have to take ice baths for 20 minutes at a time. Thank you guys. And then Cersei Vogel, she is my massage therapist. And with as much as my body has gone through changes in becoming an athlete, she has sponsored my health and wellness. And for that, I'm extremely grateful. So thank you, Cersei.
Wow, you have quite the list there. Chelsah, if somebody...
I have so many people I feel bad because I know I'm not naming half the people that I should be naming right now. So please forgive.
And people are generally understanding. I mean, it's hard to come up with a list on the spot. But if somebody wants to follow you online on social media, where's a good place to do that?
So you can follow me on Facebook. I'm under Chelsah Lyons, Lyons, first name CHELSAH'. Yes, that's a real thing. And then my Instagram account is at Chelsah Sun, which is kind of like Daniel's son, but CHELSAHSAN. Yeah, go follow me. I'll follow back. I'm always very interested in seeing what other people are doing in this art. So yeah, check it out. Hopefully I'll be doing a lot more that drives your interest in following me. So good things coming up in the future. So yeah, go ahead and give me a follow and stay tuned.
Awesome. Yeah, it'll be fun to watch you continue to grow and to
just
compete.
Getting started.
Awesome. Well, Chelsah, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you guys like creating a platform to kind of boast athletes and such, and make people more aware of our art and what we're doing out there. And I know a lot of your audience is like the beginners, like the 2 years, right? 2 years or less in jiu-jitsu. So guys, please stick with it. These 2 years are where you're going to really just be introduced to it. But man, once you get past those 2 years, oh my goodness, like the things that you start to understand and just who you start to become as a martial artist, as somebody who does jiu-jitsu, like this is when it just starts to get good. And by good, I also mean really, really hard. So stick with it. Don't give up on it. There's going to be like every month where you're like, am I even learning anything? Am I worth anything? And then boom, you're going to get a stripe on your belt if that's what y'all do at your academy. So yeah, guys, stick with it. This stuff's exciting. So yeah, I hope this helps anybody out there who may be questioning if they even know what they're doing, or so on and so forth.
Awesome.
And if you guys link up with my social media, if you ever have any questions and you feel like maybe I could help you with those or answer them, please feel free to message me, contact me through there, because I'm always willing to talk to people about jiu-jitsu. So, but not the creepers. I never answer your messages, by the way.
That's why it took so long to get back to me, didn't it?
Yeah, don't sell me geese. I'm not a production company.
Yeah, I get a lot of that too. People wanting me to buy a whole bunch of geese to resell.
Yes. I think the other day somebody said, "Hello, sir," and I was like, clearly.
Chelsah, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was a blast.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for believing in our art. So good to talk to you guys. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank Chelsah Lyons for coming on the show and talking to us and helping us become better martial artists.
Yeah, she's a great example of what jiu-jitsu can do for somebody. It really has changed her life. She's got a lot out of it, including discipline and these social relationships that she has in her life, and it's great. If we often will say, if you're thinking about doing jiu-jitsu, clearly you're interested in jiu-jitsu, listen to this podcast. But a lot of people listen with that curiosity. Yeah, someday I'll do this. Just go try jiu-jitsu. It's not as crazy and as difficult as you're telling yourself that it is. Otherwise, you'd have done it by now. If you weren't telling yourself that it was too difficult or too challenging or too crazy to do, just go try it. And you know what? You might hate it. You might try a different gym. And if you don't like it at a couple of different gyms, well, thanks for listening to the podcast, but and you're still welcome to listen. But no, it's something that you really need to get on the mat and try this activity. And I'm so glad that Chelsah did, and she's a great example of what jiu-jitsu can bring to you or anybody who's training. And I look forward to kind of keeping up with her and watching her as she continues on with her career.
Yeah, definitely, and who knows? We'll probably have her back on here someday.
Absolutely, Gary.
Absolutely. Speaking of absolutely, you definitely want to check Absolutely BJJ Brick out on social media. We are on Facebook. We are on Reddit. We are on YouTube. Our biggest ones, though, we're on Twitter. So we probably got the whole shebang covered. But definitely check out our YouTube channel and check us out on Facebook.
Yeah, Gary, I would say Twitter is the weakest of our social media outlets. And
Well, you want to know the crazy thing is, myself, I have a Twitter account that I barely use. And the other day, one of our local fighters, you guys have all probably heard him, really entertainer and a great fighter, David Caveman Rickles, put something out, and he's like, hey, get on Twitter and, get me a fight, and, this guy's running his mouth or whatever. So I get on Twitter, and it took me about 30 minutes to figure out how to send something out. And, and then the guy tweeted back to me, and he wasn't too happy with my comments. So,
man.
Yeah, so I think, as I was trying to get Caveman a fight, I think I talked smack, and somebody wants to beat me up now.
Gary, you're so old. It took you 30 minutes to log on to Twitter and talk trash to somebody, and you immediately regretted it. These are all great things. Yeah, I'm not the biggest Twitter guy either. If you want the password, Gary, I will send you the login and password to our Twitter account, and you can go nuts. And
I did it on my own Twitter account. Okay. Yeah, I'd like to do it on the BJJ Brick account, and that way they wouldn't know who to beat up.
Gary, don't get us both beat up, man.
Well, shoot, you live on the east side. I'm on the west side, so most people are probably coming from the east, and they'll beat you up first. By the time they beat you up, I'll be gone.
Technically, you're closer to the airport, so whoever this is going to beat us up. Fly into the airport, get a quick Uber to Gary's place, and hopefully he'll tire you out a little bit too much in the process of making him a bloody.
Yeah, they're going to get tired from punching me in the head. Probably break their hands.
Well, this has been a bit different. If you want to support Gary in his efforts to have people come in here and kind of beat on him a little bit, or if you want to support the podcast, you can go to Patreon. And, you might say, I don't even know what that means. Well, here you go. I'm going to explain it as quickly and efficiently as possible. Go to the show notes at bjjbrick.com or in your inbox if you get in the emails, and there'll be a link to Patreon. There's a little video where I explain what Patreon is and how it does. Basically, it's a website that helps people that produce content like podcasts. And you're going to get on there and you're going to say, hey, I have to give these guys $1 every show. This is worth it. I've got something out of this show. I want to keep these guys going, show them some support. And so you pledge $1 per show. And then at the end of the month or beginning of the month, I forget which one. I think it's towards the beginning of the month. You're charged $1 per show. So usually $4. And it really just has helped us out a ton with this podcast. There was a time when we were about out of money and frustration was kind of high with some technical issues. And Patreon really saved the day. We like to give you the world. It really means a ton to us when we get a new Patreon supporter. But we're able to give you a BJJ Brick gi patch, a sticker, and if you want to be social, we won't talk trash, but we will invite you into our private Facebook group where we will occasionally ask you, hey, we have this person coming on the show. What should we ask them? And we do that with the bigger name guests sometimes, and it's fun to get some audience participation from the kind of the top level people who are involved in the show, the Patreon supporters. So that's a lot of fun. So check it out. The link is in the show notes, my friends.
Yep, definitely check it out. And also, don't forget to tell your friends about this show. We appreciate you letting people know about it, and makes our BJJ Brick podcast grow even larger.
All right, the article of the week was written by our friend Joe Thomas, and it's always fun to get him on this show and talk about these articles. This article is Defend the Primary Threat. Joe, welcome back to the show, and I'm happy that you're here discussing this article with us.
Thanks, Byron. How are you doing?
Doing really good, and it's always interesting to have three of us on the phone at the same time. But Gary, how are you doing as well?
Oh, I am doing fabulous. Thanks for asking, Byron. Glad you got my back, literally.
So, Joe, kind of bring us into this idea of what the primary threat is and how that works as far as learning jiu-jitsu and what we should be defending.
Okay. I like concepts in jiu-jitsu, and this seems to be one that you can apply to every position, and so I like the idea of that. A couple of months ago, we discussed micro jiu-jitsu and how offensively, if you like the cross-collar choke and the scissor sweep, then that cross-collar grip might be your primary objective. And this is sort of the inverse of that. If you are in somebody's guard and they're posturing and moving in a way that indicates they want to get that sweep or they want to choke you, then your primary threat is that cross collar grip, and you got to fight that at all costs. It doesn't matter how many passes you drill. If you keep letting people get that grip, you're not going to get very many guard passes. And I think that, if somebody's posturing like they want to armbar you, they want to do a flower sweep, it's the same thing. The primary threat would be having that arm drug across your center line and dominate it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I find that does make a lot of sense. Try really to defend almost the setup more than just the submission. So it's much easier to just not let the armbar happen than to fight out of every armbar that somebody attempts on you.
Yeah, if you keep your arms where they're supposed to be, then you're not going to end up in that position.
Yeah, like you were talking about, Joe, defending the collar. It doesn't matter how many guard passes I have or how good I am at guard passes. If I'm in your guard and you start grabbing my collar and moving your hips, I'm going for a ride. I do need to, like you said, defend that. I need to get my posture back before I can start passing your guard. So if I don't, I'm going for a ride and I'm going to end up on the bottom.
Yeah, I think the more that you contemplate these ideas and the more you think about them, the quicker you'll recognize what other people are trying to do. If you are not accustomed to Jiu-Jitsu and you get somebody's closed guard, you have no idea why they're pulling one arm one way or pulling your head another way. But as you train Jiu-Jitsu, the sooner you can start to recognize what they're trying to do, the sooner you can identify that primary threat and shut it down.
Yeah, Joe, I remember being probably a blue belt thinking, I've got a couple of good submissions from my guard, and getting to roll with a really high-level belt. I think it was a black belt at the time, and just thinking, okay, at least I'm going to try this technique. And I couldn't even try that technique. Not that he defended it, but I couldn't get the technique started and set up and do anything. And that was a little surprising to me. But what was happening there is he was defending my setups through good posture, through just awareness of not letting me do certain things. And it was just, I was surprised that I was used to people escaping my submissions. That's fine. But he just countered my setup before I even really got to move my hips.
Yeah, it's always frustrating. You're trying to roll and like Joe was saying, somebody keeps their elbows in or somebody who's got such good position, smashes your hips so you can't even move, that you never even get to that position. I'm always on defense. I never get to get my offense going. And it can get frustrating with somebody, who is so good like that.
Yeah, when you put it that way, Byron, you're talking about not even being able to get a technique started. When you're thinking about defending the primary threat, the earlier in the process you can identify and defend it, the better off you are. Like for an armbar, there might be 5 different points in that sequence where you can defend, but if you wait till the 5th one, it's just a last-ditch effort. But on the other hand, if you can identify the first one and shut it down, the guy never gets started.
Yeah, and just keep on that example of the armbar. I'm in Joe's guard. Yeah, he's kind of looks like he's looking at an armbar. He shifts his hips a little bit, and I follow his hips. So I literally move my knees a little bit with him and chase him and kill that angle. Was Joe going to try to armbar? I don't know. Did he get a chance? No. That was maybe a 0.1 or 0.2 in his development of getting the armbar on my arm, and you just kind of shut it down before it even really happens. And I think this is a great concept to learn Jiu-Jitsu. You can apply it all over the board.
Exactly.
And you do mention a few other things in the article as far as just some examples of other positions that this could be looked at.
Yeah, I've been through a period, I think I'm on the other side of it now, but for a while I was getting caught with Andakana and Darce-type chokes from bottom side control or bottom half guard. And so obviously the issue there is your opponent getting his arms in position in the first place. And so I spent some time working on that and no more problem.
It's funny you talk about that position, Joe, and running into the Anacondas and Darces and Bravos from there. I kind of run in the same position. from side control, or same issue from side control and half guard. I'm a very big underhook person. But I was running into arm and guillotines, being very aggressive with my underhook, coming forward really hard, and running into Byron's and other people's arm and guillotines. And I was the same boat. I had to, as I was coming up, I had to, worry about hand positioning, worry about head positioning, not even let that person get started. And, it did change my game around and made me a better grappler, thinking about, defending the primary threat.
Just like to stress that, concepts will probably do you more good than just collecting random techniques. In the beginning of the article I mentioned, and I know you guys kind of agree, that you should be good at 2 or 3 techniques from each position you might find yourself in. And once you get there, it might be more beneficial just to start studying the game of jiu-jitsu and the concepts rather than collecting random techniques.
Yeah, that really is a good point there. I see a lot of people in the gym, just wanting to learn more and more techniques, that no rhyme, no reason to them. Just, see the, Byron likes to call it the flavor of the month, whatever, is posted on the interwebs that month, and somebody's tapping people out. And, I just see people chasing move after move after move. And it seems like when I watch, in the long run, those people's, development is stunted. They're chasing too many moves and really not getting behind the concepts. Like you say, Joe, their game has some holes in it. And, I think it is really, really important, like you said, to have a couple moves from each position. And you're going to know more than that because, you're going against people who got different tools in their toolbox, not their tool bag, Byron, their toolbox. And, so you are going to be exposed to different moves, but, those concepts are so important to having a complete game.
Yeah, I'm glad, Gary, you've got a box to put the tools in there.
Yeah, I'll never live it down when I called it a tool bag. But there are tool bags.
In the hierarchy of things that you can carry your tools in, where does the tool basket fall? Gary, is that before or after the tool bag?
To be honest, I think the tool basket would be before the bag. The bag is a little more advanced. The sides collapse. It's a little easier to carry. If you're climbing a ladder, it's not going to get stuck on the rungs. It's easy to attach to your belt. So personally, I think the tool bag is kind of at the top of the hierarchy. Byron has different opinions, but if you've seen Byron try to put his deck in his backyard, you would not value that opinion too high.
I think the tool basket, what research I've done on this, and it's been quite a bit, is it falls somewhere between, it's slightly better than the tool jar and not quite as good as the tool pottery. So that's kind of...
Yeah, the tool jar and the tool pottery, according to my research that I did on the dark web, they are very easy to break. So not very good to waste your money on those two.
Oh, man. Good times. Hey, good news. Next week, we're doing this again. We're going to have Joe on again to talk about another article.
Awesome, guys. I'll talk to you then.
Yep. See you next week, Joe.
Well, Gary, I'm excited about next week's show, my man. It's the end of the month. And what do we do on the end of the month?
At the end of the month, we have our own show with no guest.
Yeah, and that sounds terrible, but they are a lot of fun, these episodes, because I think we're a little bit more ourselves maybe, and we just dive deep into a topic. This one is going to be interesting to where we go for it. The show next week is going to be called Turning Your Jiu-Jitsu into an Art, and it's really just focusing on that transition where coach is showing you armbar, coach is showing you rear naked choke. And then eventually, maybe your setups are kind of unique, or maybe details about the setups you've really found that fit you and your style and your body very well. Eventually, your jiu-jitsu will go from something that was taught out of a template into being your own personal art form. And I think that's a really interesting time in the process of learning jiu-jitsu that happens. And that's what we'll be talking about, Gary.
I'm glad you explained that, because when you sent me the notes over and you said next week turning jiu-jitsu into art, I actually thought we were going to, get watercolors out and paint. And I'm not a very good painter, so I was a little bit worried, but that makes sense.
Yeah, we might be painting a brick, and that'll be the extent of our painting process.
That would be nice.
We just mentioned that if you want to fly into town and beat one of us up, Gary lives a little bit closer. We are in Wichita, Kansas, and the flights aren't super cheap getting in and out of here, but they're not bad. But really, if you're traveling through the area, we love to train with you. Send us an email at bjjbrick@gmail.com, and we'll set up a time and try to get on the mat with you. That's pretty simple. Or send us a message on our Facebook page, and we'll do the same. And depending on the day of the week or what's going on, hopefully one of us will be able to get some mat time. We always enjoy getting mat time with the listeners.
The crazy thing is, Wichita, the nickname is the air capital of the world, because we used to have all the big aircraft companies here. And, we're the air capital of the world, but it's hard to find a cheap flight in here. So kind of an oxymoron.
What'd you call me?
An oxymoron.
Okay, I think, I've been learning a lot. I'm not that big of a moron.
Okay.
Often my
Just a
jiu-jitsu
little.
style has been described as ox-like. Sure, we're in the fall months. Winter is around the corner. Gary, I got one for you, my man.
Okay.
How do you find Will Smith in the snow?
No clue.
Because I'm just going to try to help you, because it will be snowing. Everybody knows, Will Smith will be coming to town to train with us. It's a thing that happens sometimes, maybe sometime in the future. Gary, you find Will Smith in the snow, you look for the Fresh Prince.
Good one.
Boom. Not good. But there we go, my friends. Thanks for listening. Another week gone by, and we're happy to have you listening and sharing this experience with us. Stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't listen to Byron's jokes.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.